Hello and welcome to the Tour Report from Secret Golf. It's the final major of 2023. It's the Open Championship this week at Royal Liverpool down in Hoylake. Right, Elk, we've got a huge amount of stuff to talk about today, notably the course, which, you know, there's a lot to go over. And as you just said to me perfectly, when we're making our picks, we really have to understand how to play the course. So we'll get to that, but we have to talk about the Genesis Scottish Open last week, where Rory McIlroy broke the heart of the entire country of Scotland when he pipped Robert McIntyre to the post.
I'm not sure which was a better shot, the McIntyre's whatever 3 or 5 wood out of the rough or Rory's 2-iron. I mean, Rory's getting more play on that 2-iron because he won. Hey, what's the big deal about hitting a long iron to a last hole? I hit a 3-iron in 91 out of a divot and won the Players' Championship. Not that big a deal, Rory, but whatever. But we tried to sort of set odds on him winning the tournament. Went back, Diane, was like maybe 25% chance Rory would birdie 17 on the par 3, and then about 5% chance that he would maybe birdie 18 to win the tournament. So combined, it was only about 12% chance that he had a chance, and he did it. Yeah. And it was an amazing shot that Rory hit on 18. I think earlier in the week, someone asked him, when was the last time you hit a 5-iron into a par 4? And Rory said, oh, I can't remember. You know, everything's so short for me because I hit it so long. Well, that changed quick because he had to hit a 2-iron on the 18th to win. Yeah,
maybe he should do it more often. Well, he might be doing it this week, scaling back off the tee. But Robert McIntyre from Scotland put together just a phenomenal round on Sunday in really, really difficult conditions. 6 under, he hit his tee shot on 18. He looked nervous. He sped up, flared it way out to the left. But then that shot was just incredible. And only the second birdie of the day on 18 at that point. And it was just so great to see a Scot doing well in the Scottish Open, bearing in mind we had a Canadian win the Canadian Open, an American win the US Open. So it was a nice trend. But of course, Rory McIlroy is always a fan favourite, and it was really great for the Genesis Scottish Open to have McIlroy get that victory the week before returning to the scene of his Open Championship victory.
Yeah, and now as we move down to Royal Liverpool, there's nothing could line up better for Rory McIlroy. He won here in 14. He won the Scottish Open. All of his demons from the Masters and these other events are all put behind him now. He's got the crowd behind him. Yeah. He knows the golf course. He's in form. He cancelled his press conference, so he's not going to be distracted by tour talk. So everything points to Rory McIlroy. I don't have him on the top of my card this week, but do you?
I don't, which may come back to bite me in the bum, but we will get into our picks in a little while. Rory skipping the press conference, I thought was just a brilliant announcement when that came out, especially with this week being the week that Jay Monahan from the PGA Tour returns to work. So I just watched Brooks Koepka's press conference before we started recording, and oh my God, did you watch it?
No, I did not, no.
They just, like, you watch it with bated breath, knowing that it's like watching a horror show in a lot of ways. You're waiting for the crash because these journalists just ask him the most ridiculous questions. You know that he's going to give a kind of a aloof non-response. And it's just time and time again. He's definitely, I think, the most entertaining man to watch when they do these pre-major press conferences.
Do they still have newspapers over there? Because a lot of these journalists in England, Diane, they bait the players and then they come out with this catchy headline the next day. I'll never forget when I was at the Scottish, was at the Dunhill Cup, and they had Colin Montgomery, of course, the greatest one-liner person of all time. And he was playing in the Dunhill Cup, and he was playing a Chinese guy the next day named Chen Men or something like that. And they asked him if he'd ever seen his game. And he said, yes, I saw him in Singapore this year, and he has a beautiful takeaway. And that was it on that. But the next day, the headlines was, Monty loves Chinese takeaway. So they always have these cute headlines over there.
Oh, cute is one word. These tabloid papers are scandalous. Yeah, I know. But the
baby born with wedding ring on.
Yeah. But they keep asking him, obviously, you know, the questions are still surrounding the merger between the PGA Tour, DP World Tour and Live Golf, and nobody has any answers, and they keep giving the same thing, but they just don't know. They have to wait and see what's going to happen. So, yeah. As soon as they know, we're going to find out. It's just a matter of if and when. But yeah, it's not going to overshadow anything this week because the Open Championship is, as we know, it's just steeped in history, and we have a phenomenal golf course on show this week. The home of Tiger's Open Championship victory in 2006, just after the loss of his dad, and we saw a very, very emotional Tiger on the green on Sunday. And then, as you say, Rory McIlroy winning here in 2014 with Ricky Fowler as the runner-up, which is going to be a good talking point this week. Ricky coming off that win recently at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. You've played the course before. It's very different this year. And there's been around about 15 significant changes. We have a new hole, the 17th. The routing has changed. So it's going to be a different layout than we've seen in any of the previous Opens here. So,
slightly, yeah, slightly. Yeah.
You know, so familiar for a lot of people, you know, Rory obviously being the name on everyone's lips, but it is going to be different. We have an in out of bounds, which is an interesting feature. And then, of course, those hot bunkers that are to be avoided at all costs. So what do you remember about Royal Liverpool, and what are the guys going to have to look out for this week?
Well, I think to understand the course, I was there in 06 when Tiger won. I don't think I was there in 14 when Rory won. Very dry. I mean, there's two ways to play this golf course. Tiger's famously, of course, played this tournament. Very dried out conditions, Diane. Out there ahead of you, there's pot bunkers all over. Just think of a bottleneck, literally a bottleneck, and as the bottle gets thinner, there's pot bunkers everywhere. Tiger elected to play short of those all week with irons and 3 woods. He only hit driver one time, and that was on the 14th hole the first day. Mm-hmm. And he was able to play superb iron shots into these sort of perched up greens with a lot of runoff. Of course, Tiger's short game was great. When he missed, he was good. And then there was Rory McIlroy in 14, where it was a much wetter course. And the question becomes, you know, do you hit the ball, try to go up a bit further between the bunkers, or do you stay back? And Rory played a sort of a conservative game. Rory McIlroy in 2014 led the week in fairways hit. Wow. I bet you that he hasn't led another tournament since 2014 in fairways hit for the week, because now he's much longer, over-the-top type player. Mm-hmm. So Royal Liverpool, to entice the players to try to creep up the fairway a little bit further, they put the tees back. They didn't really want it. They don't really want the Tiger type iron 3 wood short of everything. They put the tees back 18. I know went back 50 yards. There's a bunch of tees went back. They're trying to entice players to get up the fairway a little bit further and get between these bunkers, maybe take on a few. I mean, it starts right out of the gate, Diane. You have a sea of grass that you're hitting over. You can't really see where anything is except maybe the grandstand on the green. And up there ahead, there's 280 to the bunker on the left, 300 to the one on the right. And you choose a club to lay up, or you thread the needle. Mm-hmm. So, but one thing we do know about this golf course, and I'll finish with this, is the best players win, or at least they have in the history of their event here. Robert DiVincenzo, all these guys that hit the ball so well. Tiger was leading strokes gained on the whole PGA Tour when he won. Rory was leading strokes gains on the whole PGA Tour when he won. It becomes it's not good enough just to hit a really good straight drive. We know Rory was straightest for the week that year. But even if you're a great iron player, you're still going to get some of these crazy runoffs where you miss it slightly, and you've got to be able to chip the ball. So it's not going to be a surprise winner, Diane. It is going to be the top of the predators this week are going to play it out for the Claret Jug.
Okay, and it's playing as a par 71 instead of a 72, with the 10th hole playing as a long par 4 instead of a 532-yard par 5. What about this internal out of bounds? Because when I watched the press conferences this week, first of all, the number one thing is guys are saying that they're going to have to keep it in the fairway, that driving accuracy is going to be super important this week. And then also I've heard Brooks Koepka just mentioned it as well, this internal out of bounds that is maybe going to change strategy a little bit. We saw Phil Mickelson famously having to make a very lonely walk back to the tee here after playing into this internal out of bounds, which is effectively the tented village this week for the spectators. But what does that do to your mind, and how does that change your strategy?
Well, it's always been there, so it's not like it's new. You know, you see it first on hole number 3, almost like you play down a fairway and then a dogleg right down a street, and you play a 90-degree dogleg with out of bounds, covering that 90-degree angle on the right. You can go across, but if you don't do well, or you're on the 3rd hole, you're out of business there, Diane. But the one that's really interesting is 18, because if you look at it on the map, you'll see it a ton this week. They've moved it over 20 yards closer into play. It's really in play, and it goes along the right side, just right out of the fairway, and then it zigzags across. So you got to play over it again for your second shot, and so you haven't won the day by driving it in the fairway. You've got to avoid it again up there by the green. Famously, when Rory won, he hit this towering 3-iron or 4-iron into the middle of the green on 18, sealed the deal. But yeah, it's going to be drama. There's going to be drama on 18, especially if the wind's out of the left.
And the drama is going to come on 17 as well, which is the brand new hole. It's called Little Eye, after one of the islands that you can see from the course. It's right on the water, so the wind is going to wreak havoc. Really elevated green. Those cavernous bunkers, one of the pot bunkers, I saw someone had counted the layers of sod, and it was 28 layers deep. But this hole is going to be interesting, and with it being new, obviously, you know, the guys are going to be playing around and experimenting this week. Matt Fitzpatrick had said it was interesting, and he didn't really want to elaborate further than that, with a cheeky little smile on his face. But what do you think about the inclusion of this new short par 3?
Well, I think I read some reports from the pro that played the hole or talked about the hole, and he said, well, this is sort of like the Players' Championship. You've got to pay the toll coming in, and we want one more test into the wind on a short par 3 with just gigantic bunkers all around. Will it cost the champion? I don't know. But I hear that, you know, with the wind into, it could be anything like a 7 or a 6-iron punch, trying to get it up to a perch green with drop-offs everywhere, and then the front, it runs off and then goes way back about 30 yards into that one that you spoke of there with a real deep one. So certainly set up for an interesting finish. It's not going to be over until it's over.
Yeah, and I love that. I love seeing a difficult par 3 on 17. You know, and the last major we had was the US Open at LA Country Club. We're talking about the accuracy of the tee. The total surface area of the fairways at Royal Liverpool is 22 acres. And compare that to LACC, it was more than double, which just shows the landing areas that these guys are going to have to navigate this week. So it makes it very interesting when it comes to our picks. And I don't want to spoil yours right away, but you said there that when Tiger won, he was leading the tour in total strokes gained. Same with Rory. You know, that guy right now is Scottie Scheffler. And we are, as we always say with majors, Wyndham Clark was maybe a little bit of an anomaly. However, you had picked him to win the US Open, but we're really looking at a pretty short group of guys that could go out and contend and lift the Claret Jug this week.
Yeah, well, Wyndham Clark, of course, was riding the emotions from winning in Charlotte, and he had wide fairways, and he had played that power fade, which held those slopey fairways. But yeah, it's no surprise. This week, the best players are going to get to the top of this board, Diane. You can't slop it around this course. You've got to be smart. I mean, Tiger proved it. Rory proved it. I mean, as I said, I can't emphasize enough that if Rory McIlroy led the field in fairways hit to win this tournament, that is just crazy to me. So all my board is all stacked this week with guys that hit the ball the best on the tour. And you talked, I'll start off by right away by saying it, Scottie Scheffler, who has accumulated more strokes gained points than any person in the history of the tour, is my pick to win this. He has one weak club in the bag, which is the putter, but is it really that weak? He finishes like top 3 or 4 every week, and we're at a slower set of greens, a flatter set of greens. What I like about Scheffler is when he won the Players' Championship, he curves the ball both ways. He does all sorts of crazy stuff with his feet, but at the end of the day, he gets the ball in play, and he's this incredible iron player. And I think it's going to take elite iron play this week, Diane, from around 200 yards. And Scheffler, he's just the guy. For me, odds are obviously in his favor. I think he's ranked number 1. He's number 1 on our field in off the tee. He's number 1 in approach to the green. He's number 1 in chipping, and he's like number 50th this week in putting. So if there was ever a week where Scottie was going to have a chance to win the Open Championship with sort of, are we calling it average putting? This would be the week. Slower greens, flatter greens than normal.
It's wild. It's very hard to call anything that he does average. It's average by his standards compared to his other stats. It's just wild. It's incredible what he's doing right now. He's finished within the top 5 in his last 7 tournaments. And he hasn't finished worse than 12th since November last year. He's made over $19 million this season.
The other thing I like about him, Diane, is he's 2 other little things. He's not he doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and then he avoids a lot of bogeys. So he's got a good caddy. He plays well, very strategic. Doesn't get. Is there anyone more heartbeat lower ever all the time than Scottie Scheffler? Doesn't get all hyped up. Not that interested in the tour, talking about all this other stuff. Hey, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know anything. And just keeps going about his business. So. Scheffler's going to be hard to beat this week, Diane, because he hits the ball so well. He didn't even look like he was in the game last week at Scotland. What did he finish? 3rd?
It's remarkable, and he shows no sign of slowing down. We're going to look back on this period of his play as just something insane. And what else is still to come? There's still so much more. Could be capped off with a win this week. He's only had 2 victories this season. He won at the WM Phoenix Open and he won at the Players, which that's the only thing, is that when you compare it to the kind of a Tiger run and when Rory was leading in strokes gained, how many more wins they were actually getting. So for Scheffler only to have 2 victories this season, are the floodgates about to open? It's such a weird way to look at it.
And the only reason I'm putting Scheffler on top of Rory, with everything going for Rory, is Rory's whole game this week is going to be about discipline. Will he be able to keep the driver in the bag? Will he stay back? Scheffler chips a little better than Rory. He gets up and down a little better. Rory's I don't want to say mistake prone, but he's not. He's one of the best players, top 3 in the world. But Scheffler's slightly better, and they both probably putt about the same. Rory's stats are slightly better, but Rory doesn't make everything either. They just hit the ball so superior. Putting looks terrible to us, but they're not. They're having a lot of 2 putts, and that's putting their stats up a little bit.
Well, Rory's 42nd in strokes gained putting on the tour right now, and Scheffler's 58th. So, as you say, it is. And
pretty close.
If you were to look at a part of Rory's game that is the weakest, it's his wedge play, isn't it? And just not hitting it close enough. And that's kind of what we saw at the Open last year when he lost out to Cam Smith in the end. So Rory's 7-1. Scheffler is 7.5 to 1 plus 750. So they're definitely up at the top this week.
Well, the question is, who are you picking this week that we haven't spoke of yet? Because there's two guys I can't imagine someone you've got better than that.
Well, I am picking the guy who is 7th on the PGA Tour in strokes gained total right now. He is coming off a 6th place finish at the Scottish last week. And I had picked him last week and at one point thought, here we go, this is going to happen. I need him to erase the memory of his double bogey on the 72nd hole very quickly. But I think he will, because he's coming back to the area where he grew up. He grew up like 50 miles from the course. This is a real home event for Tommy Fleetwood at 25-1 this week. I am taking him as my outright favourite. He's been playing great. We've seen what fantastic shape he's been in. He almost won the Canadian Open. Of course, that Nick Taylor's storybook ending, we can't really take anything away from that. It was Nick Taylor's all the way. But Tommy Fleetwood still searching for that elusive first victory on the PGA Tour and his first major victory as well. I would go as far to say his game has never been in a better shape than it is right now. And I looked, he's been gaining strokes on the field in all areas, but over 11% of fairways compared to the field average last week at the Scottish. He knows the style of golf. He grew up playing links golf. We've seen him contend in the Open before. So I love Tommy Fleetwood this week at 25-1. I'm not backing down.
One of the names is inconspicuously left out of our conversation thus far is Jon Rahm. And I have to say, well, there's a ton of golfers that we could be picking here, but Rahm, Rahm has a tendency to do exactly this. Nobody's bigger on Rahm. I had him winning Kapalua. I had him winning the Masters. But he sort of goes on and off a little bit during the season. I think he's still leading money winner on our tour, but left to right player exclusively, maybe a couple of draws. This course may require both, but I'm not on Rahm. What are you making of the messages we're hearing out of Rahm camp?
Well, he's 11-1 this week. He's now number 3 in the world, with Rory moving up to number 2 after that victory in Scotland last week. Looking at Rahm's stats, I mean, he's 9th in strokes gained off the tee, 3rd in approach, 31st around the green, which is going to be a big stat this week. I know that that's one that you were definitely looking at, that kind of scrambling stat. 14th in putting.
They're going to miss him. There's going to be some good iron shots that are going to miss.
Of course, because it's not about where you land the ball, it's where the ball ends up when you're playing this kind of golf. So,
and can you do anything with it is the question. Yeah. And also, Diane, when it gets very windy, it could get windy and could be very interesting. You don't have as much control over your ball. You're sort of more or less trying to hit the green rather than hit it at the pin if you're back there at 180 yards. And when you're playing in the wind, the ball can get away from you slightly, Diane, and then finish up in these awkward places. We do need some experience. Fleetwood's a good pick. He knows this course. He can pitch the ball. He beats down on these irons. You see him gripping down on those irons. Been working with Butch Harmon. Coulda, shoulda won the Canadian Open. Will it be the coronation for the Englishman this week in Tommy Fleetwood? That would be really something for them over there.
You know, I keep seeing the commercial on TV for the Open when Shane Lowry won at Royal Portrush, and they have Jerry and the Pacemakers, You'll Never Walk Alone playing, and him walking up to the 18th green with this look of elation on his face, the crowd behind him, and it gives me goosebumps every time I see it. Can you imagine how it would be if Tommy Fleetwood won this week? That's exactly how it would be. Very reminiscent of Shane Lowry winning at Royal Portrush. So, yeah.
He knows that. There'll be a fair bit of pressure on him. We know, we talked about Rory. There's no pressure on him, but there is a ton of pressure on Rory, meaning that that's why he's skipping the press conference. That's why he's in great form. He knows he's in position, and that's going to be more pressure. He hasn't won a major in 10 years or 9 years, and this is his chance. So there is pressure on him. There is pressure on Fleetwood as well. It's going to be interesting to see if they can shrug it off, kind of like Scheffler does, just play golf and use the strategy to play this golf course.
It's quite funny to think that Rory just got his 24th win on the PGA Tour, but his last major came in 2014 at Hoylake, especially when you see the highlights and how young he looked. And he's been so close. And that's the one thing that's really missing for Rory right now, is getting another major under his belt. And he's been, you know, last year at the Open, we thought that that was going to be it. He was my pick. You had picked Cam Smith, and we were like head to head against each other. I just want to add very quickly, and we probably don't talk about this enough, but we have successfully picked 5 of the last 7 major champions, which is amazing.
Yeah, we're not doing it in groups of players either. We're picking one guy to win. We're picking one guy to watch and one guy long shot. Well, our long shots never win. That's for a better to make some money on some value. But yes, we've done it. We've done a good job, Diane, with a small amount of sample size that we're picking.
Yeah, and we almost had Brooks for the PGA. We talked about him on the show, and I said that I was between 2. So we almost had him, and we missed out on Justin Thomas winning the PGA. But I don't really know who had Justin Thomas winning the PGA Championship last year. So there we go, 5 of the last 7 major champions, and you are going with Scottie Scheffler this week, and I have Tommy Fleetwood at the top of my board. Okay, ones to watch and dark horses. Usually our ones to watch are, you know, kind of middle of the road odds, and then our dark horses are our long shot. It's kind of hard to have a realistic long shot this week, I think.
Yeah, I mean, our long shots are almost, do they have a chance to win or not? Mine does. Don't know if yours does or not, but mine certainly, I think, does.
Okay.
You want me to start on one to watch?
Yeah, you go for it.
Well, I think this man, VIKTOR HOVLAND, has earned the right to stand with the guys at the top. You know, he won Jack's tournament recently, which turned him into a new category away from the guy that just won in all the islands, you know, Mexico, Hawaii, wherever, Bermuda. When he won Jack's tournament, that put him in another echelon. But Diane, VIKTOR HOVLAND has fixed his chipping. I know who he works with his chipping. He's doing really well on his short game. We used to knock him back because he had no short game. He's fixed that. Promise you that. Drives it great. He was in the next to last group at the Masters. Next to last group at the US Open, last group at the PGA. I think he's put together something like fourth, and second, the last 3 majors. But more importantly, he knows exactly what it feels like to stand in those last groups with all these top players. He is one of the top players. But what I like about Holden, he's a superb striker of the ball, supreme striker. And that's what it's going to take this week. I mean, this is a little bit of a stretch, but he hits that little power fade almost like Tiger did when he won here. Very accurate player, very good with the longish middle irons. I think Hovland's going to play super here, Diane. He's got a nice pairing. He's earned the right, in my book, to stand right at the top. I could put him up there with Scheffler almost.
Yeah.
Where is he strokes gained? He's right there. He's in top 5, isn't he?
Yeah, I've got it here. VIKTOR.
He's 12th on this field. Of everyone in the field, he's 12th.
Mm-hmm. Hugely popular champion. He was right in amongst it last year at St Andrews too. And as you have said, Hovland has put himself in contention in a lot of majors recently, and it's elevating his game. It's like that one step further. And yeah, I love VIKTOR HOVLAND this week as well. I think that's a great pick. So VIKTOR is
back in the 80s, Diane. Tom Watson was an emerging player and was up there in about 6 or 7 majors and never won any. And they thought that he would never win any. And then all of a sudden he got the hang of it, and then he went on to win 8. I think Hovland, I'm not saying he's going to win 8, but I think he's got the hang of it. He knows exactly what to feel and how he's feeling in these big events.
Yeah, okay. And also where he grew up playing golf, I think when it comes to links golf, this is a good fit for Hovland too. I think he's going to feel pretty comfortable out there this week. As comfortable
another guy that beats down on it, Diane, keeps that ball down, hits down hard on the ball and keeps that ball under control.
Yeah, okay. Well, I have a guy who grew up playing links golf and feels comfortable in difficult conditions. Here's one thing I love, and I'm taking Robert McIntyre, the Scot, as my one-to-one.
I don't blame you.
I found him at 80-1, between 60-1 and 80-1. And I have many, many reasons for wanting to pick Bobby Mack this week. One of them is, of course, he just finished runner-up to Rory at the Scottish Open after just a remarkable display of golf on Sunday in very, very difficult conditions where a lot of people fell apart, especially on that 18th hole. We saw double bogeys from Fleetwood, from Tyrrell Hatton, who were in the mix. And Rob goes out there under pressure and birdied it. 6 under on Sunday was just insane. But here's one thing I really loved is that he put himself in contention on Saturday and he fought. And I love the fact that he knew what was on the line. He could go out there and be the first Scot since Monty to win the National Open. And he fought so hard on Sunday and almost had it. I think he'll handle the heartbreak pretty well. They were showing him warming up on the range for a potential playoff, and he said, I don't need to watch the coverage, I'm going to hear what happens. And yeah, of course he was gutted, but you know, his family was there and I think he'll bounce back. I just hope that he isn't zapped energy-wise after last week. However, you know, he's been playing DP World Tour. He now has special temporary membership on the PGA Tour. He's right in the conversation for the Ryder Cup in September. And
he's automatic right now. He's an automatic pick right now. I read it yesterday. He's up 8 spots.
Okay. And also, you know, yeah, he finished runner-up at the Scottish Open, but he finished runner-up the week before in Denmark on the DP World Tour. So playing really good golf. In his 3 appearances at the Open, he has a 6th and an 8th place finish as well. So I'm all about it. Robert McIntyre, as I said, anywhere between 60 to 1, 80 to 1 is what I found him at yesterday. But oh my gosh, it would just be a great story to for Rory to have pipped him to it last week. For him to go back and win at the scene of Rory's 2014 major would just be amazing. So Robert McIntyre, I would just, it's a heart pick, but there's definitely a lot of sensible reasons for picking him too.
Well, I have one thing about your pick that I love and one thing that I absolutely hate. I'll give you the love thing first.
Okay.
The love is I love Robert McIntyre too, and as you being Scottish, and I understood because I was texting with you. I didn't have the TV, I didn't have the coverage, so I was living through the Scottish person here with the text and Bobby Mack. I love that he knows how to play. If he was playing in America this week at the Masters, he would not be on anybody's scorecard. And what I love about golf and what I love about the Open Championship is it creates a different set of skills. And Bobby Mack, nobody in the field knows better how to strategize his way around a golf course like this. And he'll be fine. It'll be just a matter if he can get his momentum going, because he's sort of I've followed him through you for years. He's sort of a come from behind guy a little bit. He gets himself positioned and then he sort of makes a run. Okay, that's fine. What I hate about this pick, and it's not anything that you said, that you just told me he has temporary membership now to the PGA Tour. Are they going to lose Bobby Mack from the European Tour now, Diane? That's what I hate about this, because the way the tour is set up, he's now eligible to leave almost. And I don't like that. I remember back, you know, when Seve Ballesteros, Bernard Langer, Sandy Lyle, Ian Woosnam, if that was available back then, they were the ones that made the tour.
Yeah, the lifebloods of it.
If Bobby Mack wants to go to America and play for more money, fine. But I don't like that the DP Tour made losing.
But I think, and I don't know him all that well personally, hardly at all, really. You know, what I've seen of him and know of him is he's extremely loyal to Scotland, to Oban, the little fishing town where he grew up and still lives. Is
that where the Oban, the whiskey, the smoky flavored whiskey, Oban?
Oban, yeah, yep.
Yeah. Oban. Yeah, that's the only one I like. That's the only one I like. The rest are too peaty.
I'm sure it's the only one that Bobby Mack likes as well. But he's
I'm sure he drank it when he was a baby.
Yeah, I don't think that he will ever be too far away from Scotland, from calling Scotland home, and from the DP World Tour and what it means to hopefully represent Europe, but to play as a Scotsman. I don't think it's ever really going to leave Robert McIntyre. So yeah, I mean, great for him to have these opportunities. He went to college in the US, I think, for a couple of years, but I don't know if he got homesick, but he went back and he made Scotland his home, and that's where he still plays from. doing all these amazing
It
things.
was probably too hot for him over here and not windy enough.
I sympathise with that. Okay then, right, so I'm taking Robert McIntyre and you have Viktor Hovland as our ones to watch. And then dark horses, my dark horse is actually less than Robert McIntyre at 70-1. It's hard to find a guy that's really kind of high long shot odds for the Open. What odds do you have for your guy?
I have a 70-1 also. Do you want me to keep going or do you want to go?
Do you want me to go? I can easily.
You go because you haven't had a go yet.
Okay, well, I am very interested to hear what you're going to think about my pick, actually. I went back and forth. He was my first reaction, and I thought, yeah, I don't know. And I went to change it, and I always came back to this guy, so I'm sticking with it. At 70-1, I am taking Bryson DeChambeau. Now, I wanted to take a live player somewhere because they are going to be fresh heading into the Open. And I do think that counts for something. The Scottish Open was grueling. Like, it's difficult. The course can really take it out of you. Bryson played in the Live London event a couple of weeks ago. So it was over in the UK. Had last week to, prepare after finishing 11th at the Live London event and just acclimatise, get used to playing this type of golf. And I'm sure he's been working super hard. So nice and fresh. I think that's a huge selling point this week. But Bryson's been playing.
Liv has a great schedule for these players for majors, by the way. It's whether you like it or not. Their schedule to get into going into majors is awesome.
Yeah. Always
rested. We saw what happened with Brooks at the PGA, of course. Mickelson, Masters, they're doing well.
Yeah, exactly. And, they've all waxed lyrical about that as well. But Bryson is coming off a really good stretch of golf, finished second at the Live Valderrama event in Spain at the start of the month. But he's also been playing well in these majors. 20th at the US Open. He finished 4th at the PGA Championship. We've seen a different Bryson. It's not this kind of brute force and going for insane length. The muscles have been toned down. He's looking nothing like that big beefy guy that we saw a couple of years ago who was taking on.
Did you see the Instagram picture the other day with the light on where he's doing that? Did you see that?
No.
Oh, I think you got to pull it up and put it in the show. He looks like Mr. Atlas. I mean, it's crazy how strong he looks. I know.
Well, he is strong, but he's also, realized that it's not just all about this crazy distance off the tee. And when I look at his accuracy stats, obviously we have limited stats for the Live guys. We have the major stats, and then we have kind of overall fairways hit distance from Live. And when you look at his accuracy, he has hit 10% more fairways than the field average in the last Live event. So that's a trend for Bryson that we weren't seeing a couple of years ago. He was hardly hitting fairways, and now he's scaled it all back a little bit. He's playing a lot more accurate. He is playing well and has proved that he can contend in these majors when he's not playing as much golf and he's up against the guys from the PGA Tour. So Bryson DeChambeau at 70-1, I'm going to take as my dark horse this week. Although I don't really know if he's a dark horse.
I like that he's working with Dana Dilquist from California. I watch him on Instagram. Dana Dilquist is a superb coach. I'd like to have a lesson from him someday. And he's working with Bryson. He has toned it down and got his swing looking really good. And he's doing a lot better. But it's interesting you're talking about Liv. I also have a Liv player that I'm picking as my dark horse, Diane. And I'm looking at, Cam Smith, Phil Mickelson, DeChambeau, Koepka, Dustin Johnson, Patrick Reed. All these guys. Last year I picked Cam Smith at the Open Championship, at the Open, Diane, on St Andrews, because, as you know, the front nine goes out and then the back nine comes right along beside. And if you ever draw the ball, which Cam Smith did, he would always be in the other fairway on the other side on the front nine, and he would putt his way to victory because, let's face it, there is nobody that putts the ball better on earth than Cam Smith. It's just ridiculous. If you haven't tuned in to Live recently or ever, doesn't matter. I'm just telling you, take it from me. Cam Smith is the best putter on earth. Makes 20-footers like nothing going out of style. Mickelson, great. Koepka, great. Dustin Johnson, great. Patrick Reed, great. But Diane, one thing I've told you, and you've learnt this from me, is when tour players talk about other tour players, I listen. And this man that I'm picking at 70-1 has been talked about by the top echelon. Koepka said, well, the guy that I'm really looking at this week at Valderrama, who's probably going to win because he hits it so good, is Taylor Gooch.
No.
And Gooch won in Australia, where he had this insane back-to-back 60, 62 first two rounds, led that tournament. Then he won over in Malaysia or Singapore, and then he won again in Valderrama. Taylor Gooch, no stats on him, but I'm going completely off listening to the other top players talk about Taylor Gooch. He hits the ball laser straight. Greg Norman texted me recently when he won his third that he's probably the best iron player he's seen in the last 10 years. That's saying something coming from the Shark. So I'm sticking with Taylor Gooch this week, Diane, at 70-1. He'll be under the radar. There's plenty of guys I'll be talking about, and they won't be talking about Taylor Gooch. But if he gets going, his game is down the middle, onto the green.
Can you
That's
imagine
good.
if he was still playing PGA Tour and had recently 3 wins on the PGA Tour, where he would be ranked this week?
Yes, he would be, of course.
So I love that. That's a great pick. I'm ashamed to say that I just spent way too much time looking for that photo of Bryson that you were talking about, and I can't find it, which is maybe a good thing.
I'll find it. I think it was on Golf Digest, maybe.
Oh, was it? Okay.
He's standing in the weight room, and the light's on him, and he's just ripola.
Okay, we will track it down. we'll add it into the show. We're going to have to now. Okay, then. So I'll take Bryson, and you have Taylor Gooch. I love that we both have live guys at 70-1. Okay.
What would you like to see this week, Diane? Would you like to see a little rain? Would you like to see some wind from a couple of different directions? What are you hoping hang your hat on this week?
Drama. I want to see drama this week. I want to see really difficult, treacherous conditions with crazy rain and crazy wind. I've been looking at the weather forecast, and you have to take all the weather forecasts with a bit of a pinch of salt when it comes to Scotland and England and links golf, because I think the windiest days, according to the forecast, are going to be Thursday and Saturday, and it looks kind of middle of the day, about 14 miles per hour. But you know, that 17th hole, when you're right on the beach there, you're not going to have 14 mile per hour winds. It's going to be
no such thing.
Yeah, I want to see drama. I want to see really tough golf this week and high scores.
Okay, I like it. I'd like to see the wind switch. I'd like to see the wind switch a couple of different directions, because I want to see the guys that are the most versatile, whether it's, you know, playing the front 9 into a left or right and playing the back 9 the opposite. I want to see it switch around a little bit to get some versatility and play some holes a little differently and make these guys think even more.
I want to see Rory hit that 2-iron again.
Yeah. I told you, it's not that big a deal. I've already told you, it's not that big a deal.
And I want to see Robert McIntyre win. That's what I want to see this week. Okay.
I don't blame you for that either.
Oh, gosh. Well, I can't believe it's the last major of the year. FedEx Cup playoffs are just 3 weeks away now. Oh, my goodness. And then we have the alternate field event, which is the Barracuda Championship happening in Tahoe, which is the modified Stableford. So if you do switch over and have a look, the higher the score, the better, which gets me every single time. I'll see like 10 over and be like, oh, my gosh, they blew up today. What a terrible round. And it's a good thing. But really interesting, because you have to look at these guys' FedEx Cup numbers, which is going to be the motivation. That is the fuel, because we're top 70 into the playoffs this year instead of the 125. So you have guys like Keith Mitchell. I think he's the highest ranked player in the world. He's playing the Barracuda this week because he's round about that 70 number right now, and is really going to have to, you know, make sure that he's safe.
Yes. Yeah, it's time for jockey in position. Of course, you've already said that. And I used to love going to Reno. It was a great town to go play, super weather, you know, beautiful place. But all eyes will be focused on this tournament at Liverpool with the Open Championship. One of the best players in the world is going to win this tournament because of the ability to strike the ball off the tee and particularly into the greens, Diane. And that's what I'm looking. I'm looking to see the cream rise to the crop and stay there. I'd like to see half a dozen of these top players be there. I mean, we haven't mentioned a bunch of guys. Hatton's another favorite from England. I mean, he strikes the ball well. He's done well this season. You know, there's a ton of guys. We didn't talk about Cantlay. We didn't talk about SCHEFFLER. We didn't talk about, you know, a bunch of guys. But Morikawa could do well. Is he putting well enough? He just finished second at the Rocket Mortgage. Straight hitter, good iron player. Will he be a piece of this action? We'll see. But it's all going to come down to how good can you hit the ball this week.
One guy I just want to throw out quickly when you are looking at favourites who have lifted the Claret Jug before and have great tournament history when it comes to the Open. Jordan Spieth is 33-1. Missed the cut last week at the Scottish, and I'm sure that really boosted his odds a bit. But yeah, Jordan at 33-1 is an interesting pick. Maybe not with his tee-ball, however, he
plays good over there.
Yeah, he does.
Missed the last 3 cuts in a row, I must note. And I look very hard at Jordan. He has a great record in the Open. Got to get that tee-ball under control. Until then, I'm not putting him on my board.
Yeah, okay. All right then, well, thank you for watching and for listening to the Tour Report this week, the Open Championship. Get up nice and early, set that alarm, get the coffee on the go, and enjoy all the action at Royal Liverpool this week.